Commission, and if you could introduce yourself and your colleagues and then make whatever presentation you'd like to make.
Yes, sir. I'm Albert Tish, Administrative Elections. On my right is Joan Nixon, the Chief Deputy. On my left is Bill Hyden, our Finance Manager. And behind me, over my right shoulder, is Lynn Greer, the Commission Chairman. And Mayor Dean, Director Riebling, Deputy Mayor Hinote, thank you for your support and interest in the Election Commission. I'll start by going over some of the accomplishments of the past fiscal year. Most importantly, we successfully conducted the August 2nd, 2012 state primary and county general and the November 6, 2012 presidential election.
That was like the Super Bowl of Election Commission.
It absolutely is. That is correct. That's a good way to put it. Prior to that, we coordinated with other government agencies, including Metro IT and Metro Planning, to accurately reassign all the affected voters in the county into their newly drawn State House and State Senate districts. And I want to just take a minute and particularly thank Kyle Lampert, John Broom, and Jennifer Higgs at planning. Their help was indispensable in doing this redistricting. I will note that it was the second countywide redistricting in 2 years because, as you remember, the council moved quickly to redistrict their districts in 11, so we did a redistricting in 11 and then again in 12, so somewhat of an unusual situation. After the redistricting, we performed all the necessary steps to ensure that all the voters were notified of any changes caused by the state redistricting that would affect their voting location or who their elected representatives were. And we did that by mailing out a brand new voter ID card to every one of our registered voters that gives all that information, their polling location, who their representatives are, etc. Before doing that, we improved our mailing procedures to save money because it was about a 300,000 plus mailing that we had to send out. Also in that fiscal year, we implemented training programs for our poll officials, explaining and clarifying the new requirements of the state law about photo ID. I think many people were nervous about the impact of that law, and it turned out to be pretty much a non-issue. I think that has a lot to do with the information that was pushed out and the training. We spoke at every event that anyone would have us go to. I did, my staff did, Joan did, some of the commissioners did, so we pushed a lot of information out about that. We increased the use of video and online training capabilities that allowed our poll officials to supplement their in-person training, and this included the use of the state training videos on what are now 2 different types of provisional ballots that might be cast in the polls. We processed in the fiscal year 26,000 new voter registrations. In the calendar year, we processed 32,000 new voter registrations. That's a large number. I took a look at the population of Tennessee counties this morning before I came over, and we processed more new voter registrations than 50 of our 95 counties have total population. So it gives you an idea of the size.
Is that a function of a presidential election, or what is that?
Presidential always drives the registration. It does increase in a presidential year, but it is an ongoing issue. It never ceases. We'll process over 100 a day, every day of every year. It does increase during the presidential year. We purchased electronic poll books to improve our accuracy and our speed and to reduce costs. We rolled those out in August. That was a successful rollout. We trained 530 poll workers on the electronic poll books. On Election Day in November, during early voting in November, we processed 10,000 change of addresses for voters who had changed their address since the last time they had voted. On Election Day, we processed 6,000 change of addresses for a 16,000 total during the November election cycle. We designated 12 strategically located early voting sites that enabled the Commission to efficiently and professionally meet the large expected voter participation during that November 6th presidential election Super Bowl, as you called it accurately. Some of our goals, we want to, and we are continuing to institute a more efficient means of communicating with and disseminating relevant information to our poll officials. We're communicating more and more by email with them. This does 2 things. It gives us a quicker link to them, And it also indicates to us if they are on email, they are likely computer savvy. As the voting changes and improves, we need more computer savvy poll officials to work with us. We want to ensure that the Davidson County Election Commission takes full advantage of the rapidly evolving technology associated with database management and election equipment. For example, we will be standardizing all of our street suffixes, road, park, lane, with the U.S. Postal Service standards, which will eliminate some problems with returned mail. Standardization is a good way to go for us. We're also looking at a cheaper, smaller ballot bag instead of the large metal traditional ballot boxes, because the only thing that goes in those boxes now are provisional ballots, and there are not that many. A bag would serve a same purpose and be easier to handle for our poll officials. We're continuing our efforts to acquire the capability for online filing and inspection of campaign finance disclosures. The state has this for state-level candidates. We do not have this for county-level candidates, but we are talking with at least one vendor, and that may result in an RFP going forward. We intend to recruit and train 320 additional poll officials for the 2014 election cycle. In November, we had about 100 plus appointed poll officials that did not show up for work, and we were shorthanded. But in an election cycle, the show must go on whether or not you're shorthanded. I commend those poll officials who kept the polls working, and we had a successful election and did not see some of the problems that we all read about nationwide. Miami-Dade County was voting voters 6 hours after the official close of the polls. There were 3-hour waits in some counties in Virginia. We had about an hour wait in some places, which was about our worst. So we were pretty happy with those results. We were shorthanded. We will solve that problem going into 2014. We have recently implemented a Find Where I Vote polling place locator application that can be used on the computer or on mobile devices. So you can get on that site, use that app, and find exactly where your Election Day polling place is. We will also put the early voting locations on that application when they are designated prior to each election. Again, I want to thank planning, and in particular Jennifer Higgs, for her help with that. She has been indispensable. Strategically, we want to continue to develop programs and procedures that will ensure that our database of registered voters will contain only the names of those voters who are currently eligible to vote in Davidson County. We continually purge voters who have died. We continually purge voters when we get information that they have moved to another county or that they have moved to another state. And this is a continuous process that goes on day in, day out. We are reviewing and addressing any problems from the 2012 election cycle so we can improve our procedures. We're evaluating the August and November 2012 early voting statistics, both from a numerical and a demographic standpoint. That will help us refine the optimum number and the locations for early vote sites during future elections in order to provide convenience for the voter. We're continuing to identify various organizations and community resources from which qualified poll officials can be recruited. In reading some national documents, poll workers are getting harder to find all over the country. Our older generation was great about being poll workers. The younger generation coming up behind them is perhaps not as quick to be poll officials as their parents were. Budget-wise, we have what I call a bifurcated budget. We have an administration budget and an elections budget. We are asking for some improvements in the administrative budget so we can improve our processes. We need to bring back some positions that we have lost because we have a situation now where our managers are simply wearing too many hats during the election cycle. It is difficult now for us to have enough people to manage the temporary staff and all the poll officials that we have to recruit and train, so we are asking for an improvement there. I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
pretty clear to me. Rich, you mean?
I guess the only, next year's sort of an off year for elections, relatively speaking. You only have the May primary, I get, or the May, it's May primary? Yeah, May primary, right?
Well, in the fiscal year, yes, sir, that is correct.
Right. But it's a big primary, isn't it? Because it's all the judges, so it's a large county primary, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, because this is all the judges in the courthouse are on the ballot this time.
Yes, sir.
They're all up, yeah. So it's unlike most of the county elections. It's what, 8-year terms?
8, some 8, some 4, but it's a. Yeah,
Most of the judges are
one.
8-year terms. Okay, because it seemed like it was a high expense item for that election, but it is going to be. And you think you're going to need as many early voting sites for that? You have in your budget a large number of early voting sites for that.
That is a commission decision that they will make. We could have as many as 12 early voting sites.
But you have the budget request is for 12 early voting sites, right?
Yes, sir.
And the commission ultimately makes a decision as to where and how many, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We have standard locations.
Right.
We're trying to standardize as much as possible so the population understands where their nearest early vote site is.
That's all I got.
I just have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So fiscal year, calendar year, there's a difference. So for the rest of this calendar year, up until the May election of 14, it's sort of a window where you don't have any elections in Davidson County, right?
That is correct, that there are no elections in the county, and that is a window.
In this calendar, 13 calendar year.
In 13 calendar year, yes, sir.
And so I'm sure that you and the commission and the staff are sort of thinking about what can we do in that window to sort of make, you mentioned some of them in your opening comments, what can we do to sort of make the process work better? I'm sure you're always evaluating that. Sort of prioritize between now and May, what's going to change in the voting process for the average voter? How would you, what are you looking at as a priority to sort of change between now and May?
I believe the biggest thing that you will see is the introduction of the electronic poll books countywide. In looking at some of the national reviews about lines, antiquated paper poll books and rosters.
In November, we didn't use them countywide.
We did not use them countywide. That is correct.
Writing your name 4 times in a book is no longer the standard?
I'm sorry, say again?
Writing your name 4 times in the book is no longer the standard?
No, sir. That is not standard. Sorry. We get a little sensitive about things like that at the Election Commission. But the paper poll books have been pointed out as something that slows things down. And let me give you one example. If someone comes into the wrong poll, with the paper poll books, if they're in the wrong poll, they are simply not in that paper poll book. With the electronic poll books, we have every voter in there, and we can call them up very quickly and say, no, Mr. Hinote, actually your polling location today is properly over here, and it solves some of that confusion problem and moves the line quicker, changes it essentially from a 3-step process to a 2-step process. And then in the posting of votes, putting the voter history onto the database, who participated in the election, it changes that from about a 35 to 45-day process to about a 2-day process. The only things we will have to do by hand at that point will be our change of address voters, our provisionals, our absentees. Am I leaving anything out?
No, that's it.
Okay. That would be the biggest change, and we will be training people to properly operate those.
There's enough lead time now where change is always hard for some folks, and there's enough lead time now where we shouldn't really have many issues with sort of getting everybody trained and educated and understanding of what that function looks like.
That is our plan. We want to add video components so people can brush up on this easily at home or take a CD with them, so they're never far away from learning.
Any other big changes you anticipate between now and May?
Well, what I discussed was the biggest change between now and May, and I think that's a sufficiently big an improvement. Yes, it is. If there is a bill in the legislature regarding voting centers, we do not see Davidson County moving towards voting centers in 14. I don't think that's going to happen. I've looked at the bill. I've talked with other large county administrators. There are some real challenges there. It makes sense theoretically. The practicality may be slightly more difficult than the theory, particularly in the large counties.
All right.
Okay, good. Well, thanks you all for your hard work, and congratulations on winning the Super Bowl or getting through this year. It was.
Thank you, sir.
Things went well in Davidson County. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.